vulnerability, honesty again. What you said is, oh, it just seems so real. That's honesty. That's emotional honesty. Um, and I think the best writing comes from a place of emotional honesty. Of it, boy, this is going to hurt to say. Boy, it's gonna, ooh, my ego's gonna take a beating. But if I'm honest, this is what I'm feeling, and that comes out in the writing. You know, people, you're putting a vibration out there. I mean, you're throwing a rock in a pond and it's creating a ripple. And when you do that, there's some people who are going to just be right on that wavelength and tune right in, and you could change their life. You could really or change their day or change how they're feeling that minute, and that makes it all worthwhile.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
What's up, entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers? I am super excited to be here with one of my college classmates, TJ Brady. Some of y'all may be listening to the podcast, EQ for Entrepreneurs. Some of you may be watching us on YouTube right now, EQ for Entrepreneurs. Thank you all for joining us. And if this adds value to you, we'd love it if you would rate it, review it, subscribe, share, comment your takeaways as well. Before I tell you the funny story of how TJ and I reconnected after school, let me just give you a quick introduction and overview to the four main areas of emotional intelligence. So it's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and social management. Again, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social management. Okay, so funny story. Kathy and I were, now this is probably, and TJ can correct me with my accuracy here, but I want to say maybe 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. We're our Netflix and chill, right? We're watching this, glued to this TV show, right? Glued to this TV show, and we normally skip the intro and all the credits and move to the next one, right? Especially if we're tearing the show up. And it was called Lie to Me. And we're watching it, and we were talking about one of the episodes, and we missed the skip the intro button. So now we're watching all the credits and stuff, and I see this name on there, TJ Brady. I'm like, there's no way that my classmate is this gangster writer, right? And so I had my wife take a picture of me next to TJ's name. We paused the episode, and I sent it to TJ. I said, TJ, is there any chance, man, that this is possibly you? Boom, we reconnected. It was him, and the rest is history. So TJ, tell us your story, bro.
Oh man, that was great. By the way, I love when you do that. Whenever people respond positively to anything I've worked on, it means a lot to me, and it meant a lot to me that you did that. And it also reconnected us. I mean, it's amazing what can happen, and I've learned this from you a little bit when you just sort of reach out to somebody in a positive way to say, "Hey, man, I love what you're doing," or "I love what you did," and it meant a lot. So here we are. So thank you for that. My story. Well, grew up on a farm in upstate New York, little town called Warwick, New York. Family farm that has been in our family since 1828. Um, it's funny, I wasn't like working that hard on the farm. My dad and his brothers kind of did it. It was there. I was around. It was such an amazing bucolic upbringing in this gorgeous little town. Had two parents who loved me, had a brother and sister who were great. And then we were an hour and a half, 2 hours from New York City. So I was exposed to that as well. Um, And yeah, my mom was always just this big dreamer. Like, if you can dream it, you can do it. Always encouraging me. My father, I've seen a man work harder. I mean, he doesn't sit still. So I learned some great things from the both of them as I put those together. Um, when I was in eighth grade, my best friend at the time, his brother went to West Point, and I really looked up to that guy. And I was kind of like, oh wow, amazing! Like, and also it was kind of a way out of my town. Like, I love my town, but a lot of people graduate high school and they're still around. And I was always reading and writing and just watching movies, and just my mind was going elsewhere a lot. And everything West Point stood for. I mean, heck, it was only 45 minutes, an hour away. Um, first of all, I don't think I could have gone to college anywhere closer to my house. Went there and and just loved it. I loved everything about it. I had dreamed of going since I was, eighth grade. Set up my whole high school experience with, president of this and this club and that club and team captain. Like, I was trying to be the guy in the admissions brochure. Um, and I loved it, and it exposed me to a whole world of people and characters in a way that I would never have been exposed to, from all walks of life, from all over the country. Um, and also, I was part of something bigger than my own self-interest at that age, which I highly recommend for people. I mean, at any time in their life, but especially that age. I mean, it wasn't just about me and what I wanted. I was part of something bigger with a bigger purpose and mission. Um, Went to West Point, uh, branched armor, loved it, was in tanks, platoon leader, staff officer, S1, company XO, all that at Fort Carson, Colorado. Yeah, I loved it there in Colorado Springs. Um, I miss all the skiing. But the whole time, the one thing I left out that's been a constant through all this, I mean, from when I was a kid, I was a writer. In junior high, I was entering story contests and poetry contests. In high school, it just kept going. It never occurred to me that this could be a real job. Um, at West Point, I was always writing. I remember I loved our English classes. I always did pretty well. Um, Despite the fact that it's known as an engineering school, I really had a great time in the learning in the humanities there. And in the army, I was always writing. I kind of got a lot of weird looks for how much, like, I would read and write a lot. In the tower, in between my tank cruise runs on table 8, I'd be like reading, and people, I don't know. The culture of the army in the '90s was a little more macho than I think was healthy for a lot of reasons. But uh, anyway, so I just kept writing and writing, and it finally occurred to me, I love this so much, I should really chase it down and try and make a career out of it. So I left the army, and I took a sales job at one of those JMO, junior military officer conferences, that got me to New York City. Because hey, New York City, that's where writers are. It wasn't that far from where I grew up, and I started taking courses at night in writing and all different kinds. And I took a screenwriting course, and that's when it was like bong, like the gong. Someone just like rang a gong next to my head. I love movies. I love TV. I love to write. All these things could be combined, and I just dove in head first and wrote my ass off. And I spent a lot of time on the road because it was a sales job, and built up a huge portfolio. And then, you know, my girlfriend at the time, my current wife, was like, "Well, if you really want to do this, place to be is LA." And she encouraged me. She's always been my biggest fan, and kind of the bedrock of everything. And I got my company to move me to LA, and I was still on the road, and I was writing a lot in hotel rooms, building it up. And more than 7 years after I left the army, 7 years as a lighting sales guy, I broke in and to write that credit that you saw in Lie to Me. And that was almost 13 years ago. I've been lucky enough to work steady in TV for the past 12, 13 years. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, but very steady as it goes. My then girlfriend, now wife, and I have 4 kids, which fills our hearts and fills our time more than you can imagine. And I just feel very lucky and very blessed to have my family to live in LA, which I love very much. And I would have never guessed that growing up on a farm in New York. And yeah, that's basically the broad strokes in 3 to 5 minutes.
So love it, TJ. Fascinating. I just always find the trajectory of someone's life and the decisions that we make and what influences those decisions and stuff is always just so fascinating to me. And thank you for starting even in your childhood where you said that your father really modeled a work ethic, an amazing work ethic, and your
Yeah.
mom modeled the ability, capacity, desire, joy of dreaming. And
Yeah, and my mom works her butt off too as a real estate agent. She's super hardworking, so it's not unique to my dad. It's just like my dad. Like it's all the things like getting up and whether it's cutting wood or cutting hay or plowing the field or moving the cows around. Like he's doing all those things that nobody notices, but that have to happen. And it's just waking up at 4 in the morning every day to do these things. And you know it very inspiring, and my mom just the biggest dreamer you could ever imagine.
wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Well, and look again, look where you're at. I mean,
yeah.
what are some of the projects you've worked on or been a part of, TJ?
Okay, from Lie to Me, I was on that for two seasons. um and then we got let go. I'll talk about the letting go part of this job because I mean, heads roll more often than people think out here for the silliest reasons, but it's part of the job. um 2 seasons on Lie to Me, 3 seasons on a show called Army Wives. I was lucky enough to work on that. Had one of the greatest bosses in the history of television bosses, a guy named Jeff Melvoin, who actually runs the professional development for people who run shows out here. So I was learning by osmosis from the man himself. I was the first writer with any military experience on that show, so I felt like I could really contribute. After 3 years on Army Wives, I had a year on The 100, a sci-fi show. Um, then after The 100, what happened? Oh, my partner and I. All of this is to say, I forgot to mention. I don't know how. I work with a writing partner, a guy named Rashid Newson, who I met when I moved out here, and we work as a team together on a lot of projects, on almost all TV projects. I have some plays I write by myself, a couple movies by myself, and he has novels he writes by himself. But in TV, we're like a package deal, and I wouldn't trade that partnership, and we can talk about that later. But sold the pilot to HBO. It went pretty far that it didn't get picked up to series. Great learning experience, but um, after that, worked on a show called Narcos on Netflix, which a lot of people know and liked. Uh, After Narcos, I went to work on a show called Shooter, which I loved. Ryan Phillippe, you can catch that on Netflix. Was there for 3 years. In between seasons 1 and 2 of Shooter, I worked on a show called Animal Kingdom because there were so many mass shootings, sadly, and a couple committed by military vets that they weren't sure they were going to ever air the first season of Shooter. So that got put on ice. I went and got another job. Things cooled down. They aired it. It was a hit. And hey, Shooter's coming back. So I could go back over. Um, but while I was on Animal Kingdom, I worked for another just amazing, amazing icon of television named John Wells, who of ER and West Wing fame. Amazing guy, learned so much from him. Then so Animal Kingdom, back to Shooter for 2 more years. After Shooter, helped some friends out on a show called The Fix. Did like a part-time consulting gig. Sold another pilot to CBS at that time based on a book called Texas Ranger. Didn't go. Not my favorite experience for a lot of EQ reasons, which I can talk to later. And then after that, worked on a show called The Chi, which is like Chicago, CHI for Showtime. And after a year on The Chi, we sold the pilot that I'm working on now, which is an adaptation of the movie Finding Forrester, which came out in the year 2000. It starred Sean Connery, but our big twist is the Sean Connery character, instead of being an old white man, is a black female, to give it a little different modern twist. and just update it for the time. So that's where I'm at, man.
That is awesome. Wow. So
Yeah.
amazing portfolio of experience. And it sounds like, and I appreciate you balancing your wins with some of your, failures. Hey, that didn't go, because I think that's realistic, right? That's life. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and I've been a part of probably 10 different startups, and most of them have failed.
Oh
And,
yeah.
right. And that's you know, the whole Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, or whichever famous person said that. But as an entrepreneur, which again, as a writer, you are an entrepreneur. It's yeah, but the cool thing when you have EQ, you don't let those things define you. They inform you. It's
If you let those failures define you in writing, you're not going to be a writer very long.
Mm.
I Every project we've sold 4 pilots. Um, I've never gotten them all the way to the finish line, but I don't see those as failures. I mean, it's part of and of the ones we've sold, there are 2 other ones we pitched and did not sell. And it can be devastating. It's upsetting. I give myself 24 hours to be pissed about it, to complain, to feel all the feelings. And then I kind of just go, okay, I don't want to live in this headspace. I don't want to live in this negativity and anger and recrimination. And what would I tell my kids to do if they were in this situation? And when I think about that, it makes me want to model the behavior for my kids. The last one, the most devastating rejection I've had, a passion project called Slab City, about this desert community out here past Palm Springs. We wanted to do like a modern day Western of this little anarchist community. It's a real place where people just sustain themselves off the grid, and it's kind of got its own rules. And we did it like a Western where a stranger comes to town and upsets the whole balance of it. Well, we were scheduled to pitch at the beginning of March. Pandemic hits. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's everybody hold on, see what's going to happen. We started pitching it again about 2 months into the pandemic over Zoom. And we pitched it to 4 places, and the feedback was, right now is not the time for a new idea from unproven showrunners. Okay, so we just stopped. I mean, there are way more than 4 people to pitch that to, but we kind of kept getting the feedback and from other people I know, like, yeah, nobody's selling anything like that right now. So don't kill it, but put it on pause. I mean, my kids were so excited about that project. My kids were so excited for me to pitch that project, and to have to sit there at the dinner table and tell them 4 people said no and we're going to put pause on it right now was, I mean, my voice was cracking as I did it, and I had to hold it together. But I immediately said, I'm going to show you guys that I can do all the times I tell you never give up, don't quit, don't get mad, like you can be upset, but then put that away and just start working again. If you get knocked down, just start climbing again. Every cliche in the book, I'm kind of a big believer in every cliche in the book. I mean, they got that way for a reason. But I said, I want you to watch what your dad does, and I want you to remember this. I want you to, because they were very upset for me, and that hurt, because they're like, why? And it's the best idea, and Dad, you're so good. I said, I know, but sometimes this happens. And when it happens to you, I want you to remember what I did now. And then 2 months later, we sold Finding Forrester, which was not a new idea. So I could be an unproven showrunner, but now we were working with producers who had the rights to this movie. So it wasn't a new idea. It was a proven commodity. And so instead of beating my head against the same wall, we went out, and I couldn't change the fact that I have not successfully run my own show yet. But what we could do is go out and find a proven commodity to sell. And so there we went. And my kids, I'm hopeful that they never forget that I walked the walk and didn't just talk the talk.
Love that, TJ.
Yeah.
Bringing our kids, our families along our, emotional journey, I think is so important, because it models to them, a healthy, hopefully it models a healthy approach to to failure or learning, or a cheesy quote. I'm a cheesy quotes guy as well.
Yeah.
You win or you learn is
Yep.
my thing. And honestly, I feel like I learn more when I lose than when I win. I don't take the amount of reflection time yet. Now maybe I need to add that into my SOPs, my standard operating procedures, that every time I win, I need to do an AAR also, not just when I lose. But I think that's such important an important lesson for them, because so much of our childhood is caught versus taught. And so when
Yeah.
they see, what I'm saying, when they see that example that you're setting, man, I think that's humongous, bro. That's awesome.
And I say all that, and like along the whole journey, what I left out is how many times I got lucky. Um, it's not, I don't think I got here because I'm powerful or special, or I don't know. Like part of it is there's so much luck. And the one quality I will allow myself is tenacity. Like I do not stop getting up when I get knocked down. Like that just doesn't happen. And how many
Why TJ? Why? How did you develop that tenacity? Where'd that come from?
I mean, I think again as a kid, like I always read books. My mom would give me these value tale books about the value of courage and the value. And my favorite one was the value of tenacity. It was about this hockey player who they kept saying wasn't good enough, Maurice Richard on the Montreal Canadiens. And I don't even care about hockey, which is funny, but this concept of tenacity and having this quality sort of took over. And again, books and TV shows and movies. Every movie I ever loved, Rocky, the dude just kept getting knocked out, down, and kept getting up and kept getting up and kept getting up. All the war movies, I guess I loved as a kid. Like you're surrounded, you're outnumbered, you're outgunned. Do you quit or give up? And all of these lessons about just never giving up. I just feel very to pretend that that's not part of the equation. I think is a disservice to oneself and being honest, because I think radical brutal honesty is those who don't have it as good as I do, and to acknowledge that, whether that's for financial reasons, health reasons, racial, ethnic, or gender reasons. I mean, I'm a big believer in all of those things, and I don't know, and to sort of reckon, it's not to use it as excuses, but to if you're being honest in why certain people are where they are, I think it's I think it's dishonest to not acknowledge the role of those things.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah.
One is yeah, it's interesting. And you brought up Kelly, Lee. I don't know if you heard the interview with Lee Rivas.
I loved all of them. I mean, I love the one with Lee, Kelly, um, Colonel Lopez, Justin Kramer. They're all awesome. I mean, I listen to these to get to know my classmates,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and I learned something. I've learned something from every one.
Oh, that's great, TJ. Yes,
Yeah.
no, I learn. That's why I love it, because I love learning from all you guys, from all your perspectives and stuff. What's been fascinating, TJ, is you talked about what and there are a zillion examples of people that have broken this stereotype that I'm about to say. But what I have found in a number of successful people, and maybe I've never done the research, so I have no idea if this is majority, minority. I have no idea. But one thing that's becoming a trend was with interviewing some of you very successful friends of mine and colleagues and stuff, is many of you guys, many of us had the privilege and blessing of loving and supporting parents.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I
and
think it's a huge leg up in this world.
right? I mean, I really and from an emotional health standpoint, one of the most powerful things we can do as parents is provide our children with an emotionally stable and predictable environment. The more volatile that their emotional environment, the more it puts their world, which is already in I won't say in chaos, but pretty
Yeah,
unstable,
yeah.
because they got the the hormonal cocktail going on, and all the emotions and all that stuff. and to add in there an unstable emotional environment, it just amplifies and exacerbates some of those situations. And so when you can provide your children with a healthy, stable, predictable, safe, trusting, supportive environment, man, it can just, and it gives them. So what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing a TJ as an adult that benefited from an emotionally stable, and not that we all have perfect parents or like that, because
Totally.
obviously that's not the case either, but it's stable enough that it gave you a healthy perspective to fail and learn and grow
Hmm.
and fall down and get back up, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
To try things. Yeah. To go for a dream. Because West Point was a dream and they supported that. And then when writing became a dream, they supported that. And it's also funny, it occurs to me, you said, oh, I'm seeing a grown-up TJ. I am I am so different than the person I was in high school and West Point in the Army. Um, you know, on we had talked about like emotional growth journey. It's been so huge, man.
Can you share
I
that?
I used to think I was the bomb at everything. I thought I was the man at everything. I thought there was no task I couldn't master because I went to West Point and I was in the Army, and it sort of fostered that, like, this sort of like fake it, fake it till you make it, or never show weakness, or I don't know if it was in my head or if it was a real environmental thing, but to just, always be in charge and always act like you're in charge and always never show doubt and never. And I do understand that in some situations. But I find I wouldn't be here now if I was still like that. I mean, I came out of the Army thinking I knew everything. That the business world, what big deal? That'd be nothing. I didn't know anything about business. I knew nothing. And that was a really steep learning curve for me to be like, oh. And also, I didn't know what it took to be successful in business. I thought, well, I went to West Point. Maybe I can just coast on that forever because that's impressive. The world does not care, and nor should the world care, because I had not proven myself competent in that world. And when I started to go down the road of like, what do I need to do to be competent and be successful in this world, I realized very quickly that following my heart and my passion, that the price of doing that was higher than I wanted to pay. The dedication, the time, the energy that would go into being successful. I learned, holy crap, if you want to be successful at anything, it really helps to have a fire in your belly for it, to have a passion. Because to be successful at anything, you have to be willing to always go the extra mile. And being honest, I didn't have that at all for lighting, for any business really. Like, in my heart, I knew I wanted to be a writer. And when I was daydreaming of being a writer and getting stuff on TV. And I would have, I'm, I give myself the shakes sometimes thinking about what would happen. Where would I be if I didn't break in? Because I don't know. It's a scary thing. It's like thinking, wow, if I kept driving down that road, I would have went off a cliff. I'm very, very lucky that I was presented with an off ramp and that I took it, because a lot of people are afraid to take those off ramps when presented. And I don't know, man. Like, it was such a humbling experience. And then I got into writing, and I sort of was like, okay, I'm here. And I realized again, I didn't know anything about TV. And even though had a good, raw, natural talent as a writer, I didn't know anything about what it took to write for TV. So it was like starting over again. And I think the two things that helped me through that were brutal honesty with myself. I mean, it doesn't help when you lie to other people about, like, put up a front of how good you are, but you are really going to erode any foundation under your own feet if you lie to yourself. If you lie to yourself, you're screwed. Um, in fact, I think one of my own weaknesses with emotional intelligence is that, managing myself in a way, because I can be very mean to myself in my head. My internal monologue can be quite a dick, and I'm really working on that, because I would never say some of the things to other people that I think to myself when I fail, when I fall short. Now it's gotten me to where I'm at, so I'm thankful for that. But the thing I'm working on is treating myself the way I would want someone else to treat me, or that I would hope to treat somebody else. Um, and so it's just been, like I said, I'm not the person I used to be, because I used to think I knew everything. And now, man, it's kind of wishy-washy and it's hard to believe. I'm not sure I have certainty about almost anything. I'm certain I love my family. I'm certain I love writing and that I'm in the right career field. But everything from politics to business to I yield the certainty to everyone else because I don't have it. And I'm constantly questioning, evaluating, putting into action over and over and over again in a process that doesn't stop. I mean, I have very few fixed opinions on a lot of things. Doesn't mean I don't have opinions, but I just mean if you ask me how certain I was of something, I would not give the approved answer based on what I learned in West Point. That's for sure.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
So TJ, I love, again, your honesty, saying, "Hey, I'm not the man that I used to be," and so you're like, "Hey, man, when I left West Point, I knew it all." Da, da, da. How did you develop that self-awareness? Because I feel like there are a lot of people. I mean, some of us are strong in some areas of emotional intelligence, and some of us are strong in other areas of emotional intelligence. There's a great book called Leadership and Self-Deception. And in that book, it talks about a company of about 10,000, they interviewed 10,000 executives. 90% of the 10,000 executives rated themselves in the top 5%.
Oh, of course, right.
And these are leaders. These are, these are leaders. How did you develop that self-awareness?
I think it's a combination of a few things. One, I don't like running full speed and smashing into the same wall more than once. Um, I always, I don't know. I don't know if you're born with this or where I learned this, but like, wow, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? And part of that is the honesty with myself. And really saying, you know what, it didn't work because I didn't do what I needed to do, or I never saw it from their perspective, or I didn't look at the marketplace before I took the idea out and wonder why it didn't sell. So part of it, again, and the other part is I try to surround myself with people who are better than I am. And when I say better than me, I mean better than me, as human beings, as a parent, as a writer, as a producer, as a friend. I mean, so many of my friends are just better than me. And you have to not mind being the worst in the room at something, because you have to want to improve. You have to want to improve so badly that it could hurt your ego. And so practice, I guess. I mean, you get calluses on your ego. You get calluses on your ego when you take notes on scripts and people tear that thing apart. Now, instead of arguing back, just listen. Just listen to what isn't working. And then you can come up with a way to try and improve it. But, I find people who don't listen and who can't take those reps and the way, I guess, a way for people to practice that I could pass on to your listeners is take up something that you want to do, but that you have never done, and just be a beginner again. My latest in that is surfing. I took up surfing in June at 46 years old, and it's hard. It's hard physically. It's hard to get in the freezing water. It's hard, it's hard to see 12-year-olds shredding waves around you when I'm struggling just to even catch one and then not get body slammed into the reef below me. But when you can put yourself in a beginner state of mind and make yourself a student of something, you're going to be humble. You're going to be humble. I take lessons. I have, 22-year-old telling me, bend my knees more, do this, do that. So if you're looking for an action item to take and say, how can I improve my ability to adapt and improve, and take up something you have no comfort with at all, take a class, take up a hobby, and just be a beginner again. And you'll get those calluses on your ego, believe me. And you'll find that the darts your ego's catching before those calluses don't kill you. You're going to be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that, TJ. That's such great advice. Be a beginner again. And like you, a few years ago, I for me, my surfing was jujitsu, and, no joke, man. The first 2.5 years is just getting smashed by men, women, and children.
Yeah, yeah.
By everybody.
And when your face meets the mat, from 6 feet above, you have no choice but to say, I can humble myself and learn, or this can keep happening over and over again.
Right. That's right. Well, that's such a great point, because to have a fixed mindset with jujitsu or with surfing,
Mhm.
you'll never progress, right? You'll
Nope.
never ride the wave, or I'll never figure out what positions work and what positions don't work, because I'll be stuck in my pride and ego, right? The Bible says pride goes before the fall.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's so true, man.
Yeah.
It's
You
so
still
true.
doing BJJ?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So how important is emotional health as a writer in LA, in Hollywood? Is it important? How important is it? What role does it play?
It's very important. I think, it's not as important industry-wide as it should be. Um, for as many good bosses as I've worked for, I've had some really bad bosses, and there's no penalty to pay because they're like, well, they treat people terribly. The stuff's not on time. Everyone hates it. But the guy's a really good writer. Like you have a whole industry being apologists for somebody. It'd be like in the army if a colonel, you know, his unit was unhappy, morale was in the toilet, and he had a culture of like rampant harassment and sexual harassment running through his unit. But that's okay because he shot expert last week. It's garbage. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be that way. I really wish the industry would realign its values. And someday I hope to be in a position to help do that. I'm not there yet, but it'll definitely be a mission of mine because I'm passionate about leadership. Um, but on a personal level, it's very important because you get 3 to 4 times more no's than you get yeses, and that's if you're lucky. I mean, if you have a 25% hit rate in anything you do, whether that's a job interview or a pitch, you're lucky. So if you're not taking care of yourself, if you don't have a good support system around you, social support system, familial support system, professional support system, the not so dirty secret, and it's because not so secret, my industry has a huge substance abuse problem. Huge. Had actors showing up on set just blitzed out of their mind. I've had actors, I've been on set where a PA is holding up a person by the waist and they're just filming waist up because they're so hammered they can't stand. We shoot all in one direction for the first part of the day, and then we shoot all the other direction after the person's had a chance to sober up after about 20 coffees. Had people not show up, the stories I could tell are huge. And that's because of the insecurity of being rejected all the time, and the emphasis on more so with actors, but people's looks and who's hot and who's not. And I think it's very unhealthy. I know why it's there, but I think we should have more in place for it. And it's very important, and I wish it were more important.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So, I mean, because I've seen it in the military where, EQ until recently has not been a thing, right? EQ, nobody at Ranger School cared about my feelings and emotions,
Nope.
right? As a rifle platoon leader, nobody cared about my feelings and emotions. And I think slowly, it's gaining some traction,
Mhm.
both in the military and in corporate America, but for a long time. And what's the number one reason people leave their job is not because of a money discrepancy, it's because of management. is
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
poor leadership. And again, most of the poor leadership examples stem from some sort of lack of EQ in one of those areas, lack of self-awareness or lack of others awareness, lack of self-management, whatever the case may be. It seems like as a writer, Kath and I joke sometimes because in in some of the TV shows, we're like, wow, these actors that are playing their character are incredibly self-aware.
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
where in real life, I feel like most of us, in fact, there's a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. 68% of people have a difficult time identifying what they're feeling, right? Which is again part of self-awareness. And I feel like the movies that do an amazing job of connecting with their audiences are those that are excellent at conveying and portraying that emotion.
Yeah. Vulnerability, both for an actor, a writer, I mean, to be vulnerable, to like really, really put yourself out there, and take a risk. And by the way, I want to make clear, like when I was talking about all the actors with I've seen writers with those problems too. It's not unique to actors. It's an industry-wide issue, that we need to address. Um, but yeah, it's that vulnerability, honesty again. What you said is, oh, it just seems so real. That's honesty. That's emotional honesty. Um, and I think the best writing comes from a place of emotional honesty. Of it, boy, this is going to hurt to say. Boy, it's gonna, ooh, my ego's going to take a beating. But if I'm honest, this is what I'm feeling, and that comes out in the writing. You know, people, you're putting a vibration out there. I mean, you're throwing a rock in a pond and it's creating a ripple. And when you do that, there's some people who are going to just be right on that wavelength and tune right in, and you could change their life. You could really or change their day or change how they're feeling that minute, and that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the most fulfilling for you as a writer in LA and Hollywood and stuff? What is the most fulfilling aspect of writing for you, of what you do?
For me, it's just two parts. Taking the written script, being on set, and adapting what we thought. We had a plan. We had this perfect plan. The scene's going to go this way. And now you're on set and it's raining. Well, it wasn't supposed to be raining in the script. Well, we only got the location for today, so make it work. It's actually producing the episode I've written, because I had an intent I needed from this scene to serve the whole story, and the pieces all have to fit together. And now, wow, like if I had these people sunbathing in the scene and now it's raining, what am I having them doing? And how do I get the same thing out of that scene? So it's the adaptability, because it's so many parallels with life. I mean, in the army, I want to make clear, I never served in combat, never did any of that. But they always said your plan never survives first contact. I think that's true in life with plans. I think it's definitely true in the TV industry. You write, you show up, and now it's raining, and figure it out. I'm the man. I'm the authority figure on the set to figure out what are we going to have them doing, or what are we going to have them say to get the intent of what I needed out of this, even if I don't hit all the prescribed steps on the way there. That's been my favorite part. The adapting from the abstract, a thought, into a real thing that you can watch and stream into your home at the end of the day. That's the most fulfilling, because it's fun, it's a challenge, it's a puzzle. There's leadership involved. I have to now get, along with the director, 250 other people on the crew to execute this on no notice, boom, and they're all in it with me, and it's a team effort. And it kind of reminds me of the army. I tell a lot of people, TV is the low stakes army. Okay, nobody's in danger. Nobody should ever be in danger. God help us if somebody ever gets hurt, which does happen, and that's a different thing. But the stakes are low, but the paradigm for mobilizing that many people toward a common goal is very similar. You have a script, which is your operations order. You have your camera department, your lighting department, your transpo, your logistics, which is like the food. You have the set people. You have the actors, which are like your maneuver elements. You know, it's insane how we're going to bring all this together to one common coherent goal. And I love it. And I think I'm in the perfect career for me. So that's why I think that is my favorite part of that. The other favorite thing that I've done over the years, and I get a chance to do this, is help somebody break into the industry and help make their long held dream come true. There's a guy named Brian Anthony, West Point class of 2001, who wrote to me from Afghanistan when he was still in the army and I was on Lie to Me, saying, I want to be a TV writer. I'm a Green Beret. He was an A-team leader. And in his spare time, he watched so many movies and started taking online courses. And I was just like, whoa. And he wrote to me and I read his stuff and I was blown away by his raw talent and how much he was able to teach himself. Got to know him, talked him through a bunch of steps. The guy listened, the guy humbled himself, the guy did all the right things. And 2 or 3 years later, I helped him get hired on Army Wives alongside of me. And, now I'm feeling emotional about that. I mean, I think that might be one of the greatest things I'll ever do for anybody in this business. I helped another guy get a job, a West Point grad. I think he's a 2011 or 2012 grad. As an agent. He started as an assistant in the mailroom at an agency. I told him if he wanted to break into the business to be either an agent or an executive, you got to go work at an agency. And guess what? You're going to be getting coffee and delivering people's mail for a year, making minimum wage. You still want to do it? And he did. Here we are a few years later, and he finally got promoted. He's not an assistant anymore. He got promoted. He's, both of these people, both of these amazing individuals who, by the way, served in combat and did things that I am in awe of, humble themselves to accomplish this thing. And to just be one part of their journey means so much to me. And the important thing there is so many people over the years have called me up and they're like, I got an idea. You should help me make it into a movie. And it's just so much bigger than that. And most of the time, these ideas aren't very good, or the people want me to do all the work and it's odd. I tell people what I can do for you. You remember there was like a leadership course where you get to a wall and you got to get everybody over the wall. And I remember the one at West Point was like 10 miles up some steep hill. I can't get you up the hill. I can't get you on somebody's back. I can't lift you up from the wall. You know what I can do? I'm on the other side of the wall. I can be the last hand to reach out and grab yours and pull you over that wall. But if you do that, you have to do all the steps to get up to that wall and to lift yourself 12 foot up so that I can reach 2 feet down and grab you and give you that last little pull you needed. But you have to get yourself. That's what I can do for people. I can't do the rest. And when I can help do that for people, it's one of the most fulfilling feelings there is.
That's huge. And I love both of those favorite things that you mentioned there. So creating, leading, and problem solving was how I kind of summarized that first one.
Mm-hmm.
And then helping. Zig Ziglar says, when you help enough other people get what you want, then you'll get when you help enough other people get what they want, then you'll get what you want. Right. So that process of helping other people get what they want, and obviously specifically to be able to break into your industry, kind of like you did. I love, that's love that. That is such a fulfilling. I can totally see how that would be very fulfilling experience. And now to have those guys in the industry with you must be really rewarding.
It's amazing. It's amazing, man. And again, I didn't do it. I was just a part of them doing it. They did it. So.
Right. That's awesome. Love it. Okay. So how about resources, TJ? What have been some helpful resources here, kind of wrapping up here?
Yeah.
What have been some helpful resources for you along your emotional growth journey? Have there been any books or podcasts or articles or people or that kind of
First of all, the people who want to do this study the movies and shows that they like, really watch episodes or the films over and over again, read the scripts, get the scripts and read the scripts while you watch the episode so you see how it translates. I still do that. Take a course or hire somebody. There's a woman I need to give a shout out to who really helped start my career, named Jennifer Grisanti. She's a story consultant and she would read scripts and give feedback, and she was amazing. So don't be afraid to seek that out, to seek education, like that, whether it's an online class in screenwriting and UCLA gives those, or NYU gives those, or Gotham Writers Workshop where I took mine, other people. I was part of several informal writing groups that we met and gave each other feedback before I broke in, and that was essential to just learning how to let your ego get calloused and do that. There are some podcasts out there. It's really it's hard. I'm not a big person in telling somebody how to do, like, to be overly specific, because it's such a unique journey. I tell people, like, I can't give you a map with checkpoints that I cleared to get to my objective, because the terrain changes so fast out here, and I'm starting from a different place than you started, and I'm probably want to get to a different place than you want to get. So my map with my checkpoints on it is meaningless. But what I can give you is my analogy is a compass. And if you're true north, that azimuth is your passion. And if you sort of plot a course along your passion, and then as you toward whatever objective it is, and you keep moving in the direction your heart takes you, and you hit obstacles, but you terrain associate around those obstacles. It's 60% heart, but you got to have that 40% head in the equation too, or else you'll just keep running into a wall going, but I'm following my passion, but I'm following my passion. Why? Like a robot just that keeps hitting the wall. If you can, terrain associate, for a military, lack of a better term, around the obstacles you hit, and use your head a little bit, and just keep moving in the direction that your azimuth is taking you. I can't tell you where you're going to be, but as time goes on, you're going to be a lot farther along and a lot closer to where you want to be than you were before. And so it's just kind of those things. It's like, the resources are films, scripts, classes, other writers or other directors or other people doing what you want to do. Seek out their counsel. And then just being honest with yourself. Those have been my big resources that I've counted on.
Love it. That's awesome. And man, so many things that you mentioned all involve having, a degree of emotional intelligence. Even going back to your two favorite things, creating and problem solving and leading. All that takes EQ. It takes emotional intelligence. Being able to, one of the things you said too is I mean, I'm putting it in words. You said it more eloquently, but you got to have mental, emotional, and leadership agility. And in order to have the agility in those areas, EQ plays a big role in that.
Huge.
Another thing that you said too is being present. Well, man, it takes emotional awareness and emotional health to be emotionally present and available and transparent and vulnerable, which is one of the big things that you mentioned as well. Man, emotional health is huge. If you're hiding behind all the walls and injuries that we all build up over the period of our lifetime, I feel like you wouldn't be as effective as a writer or communicator.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean?
And being a leader, if you want to be a leader in this industry, also, you have to have the emotional intelligence when you're giving feedback, not to destroy people. I mean, people do put their heart and soul on the line, and it may not be effective, but you have to figure out how to give that feedback without annihilating this person. Because if you do that too much, they're not going to want to work for you. They're not going to work on your show, and you're not going to get the best out of them. And so I don't know. EQ is very important and should be even more important than it actually is in this industry.
Yeah. And one of the things that we had talked about before, what maybe I think in one of our phone calls,
Hmm.
that the that some people, sometimes it sounds like in your industry you do the same thing in the military, which also happens to sometimes in corporate America, is leadership through authority and leadership through position, instead of leadership through relationship and leadership through influence. I just feel like regardless of the industry, people are people, and
Yep.
if you treat a person like a widget or a resource or an asset, they're gonna feel that. And here's the thing too, is how you treat people, which again is a function of EQ, as social awareness and social management. It absolutely affects the bottom line. People think, oh, that's the soft skills, it doesn't have an impact. It totally has an impact.
I mean, there's going to be times when, through nobody's fault, even if a leader does everything they're supposed to do, where boom, the actor, we've had this happen. The main actor in an episode just broke their leg. They can't be in this episode. Episode starts shooting tomorrow. What are we going to do? Everybody, it's all hands on deck. You're sitting down at 10 at night. Everybody's getting 10 pages. Do those 10 pages. Boom, we're starting to shoot tomorrow. Go. Um, People who you've earned their trust and you've earned their loyalty are going to give you their best. Other people, they'll give you 10 pages, but I don't know if their heart and soul is going to be into it. And there's no way to make them put their heart and soul into it unless you've earned it. They have to want to help you out of a jam because they can let you burn. Because the person who's going to burn isn't the person low on the totem pole. It's the person whose name is on the top of the sheet, top of the call sheet, yours. Um, and you can get angry and fire them after the season or what, but that's not going to solve your problem. That's not going to make this episode turn out any better. And it's all of that stuff is paid forward in the days and weeks and months leading up to that crisis. You're not just going to earn all that credibility the second things go sideways.
Well, and even you shared a story with me the other, when we were having a conversation recently over the phone. You said, that you had a call back from 3 years ago of somebody that enjoyed working with you, because you built that trust and invested in that relationship, and it paid back not next week or next month, but 3 years later.
Yeah, it's actually 4 years, man. It was a director we had attached to our HBO pilot, and then as luck, fate, whatever thing you want to call it, would have it, when my passion project Slab City got put on ice, and I'm trying to teach my kids this lesson of resilience. A couple weeks later, this director called and said, "I have the rights to this. So you guys interested?" And thank God for that. Because of the good working relationship we had established 4 years earlier. So
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah,
That's great. TJ, how do we follow you? How do we,
I'm not huge social media. I have an Instagram at TJ Brady TV. Mostly I put up pictures of things that will spread happiness, like pictures of flowers or nature or whatever. I am on Facebook. I don't post a lot. I follow our class page because it's awesome. Go Army, beat Navy. For freedom we risk. And what else? That's about it. You can find me on those. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't check it very much because I'm not corporate. But I just wanted to have a page. And yeah, you can follow. Hopefully, Finding Forrester will go on TV and people can watch that. That's my big hope.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great, TJ. Any final thoughts or encouragement for the listeners or viewers?
I would just go back to the compass metaphor. Be honest with yourself about what direction your heart is not only pointing in but pulling you in. It's a lot easier to be happy, which is most important, and successful at something if your heart is into it. I'm not saying you can't be happy or successful at something you're not heart isn't into it, but my experience has shown that it really, really helps. And EQ is important. Empathy and honesty and empathy, I think, are the qualities honesty with myself about how I'm behaving in my role in any situation, good or bad, and empathy that if I'm dealing with somebody who's coming across negatively, I'm just try and put myself in their shoes for a few minutes and consider what they might be going through. Not to say you have to don't ever let yourself be bullied, but it does help put things into perspective when you can do that and maybe see things from a different perspective that'll help you arrive at a solution. And don't take yourself or what you're doing too seriously, because I don't think in 100 years most of it's going to matter, but it's got to matter right now. People who take themselves too seriously or think they're changing the world, I don't know, you don't get to make that choice. You don't get to put yourself in context. All you can do is try and steer the present moment in a way that you want it to go, that's best for you and the people you love around you, and never forget it.
That's awesome, TJ. For all of you that are watching, man, remember that emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. TJ, thank you so much, man, for sharing the
My
amazing,
pleasure. My pleasure.
your insights and wisdom, man. I'm so thankful for the friendship that we've cultivated over the past 5 to 8 years, man. It's been a tremendous blessing to me.
Me too, buddy. Beat Navy.
All right, we'll see you, brother.
All right, later.
Bye-bye.